I remember when people said, "What an exciting time this is that we live in. How lucky we are. So many wonderful things are happening. I'm so glad that I'm living in these times." I don't hear anyone talking like that anymore. We live in perilous times. People are willing, eager, to blow themselves up or plant explosives in public places, and this is very difficult to detect and stop. So about every month and sometimes each week, there is a terrible explosion in a market or an airport or a sports stadium, a train station, and many people are killed, with many more desperately wounded. The attack is random, the victims are civilians, and everyone on the planet is aware of it. Authorities try to control this, to reassure their people, but there is a sense of hopelessness about this, of inevitability, gloom, and doom. The thinking is that if someone is really determined to do this, they're very hard to stop. Consequently, we live at the intersection of freedom and security. We're supposed to be watchful, and if we see behavior that we think is suspicious or out of sorts or problematic in any way, we're encouraged to report it. This is to try to prevent these people from blowing other people to pieces. It's not a high-tech mission. Everyone knows how to build a small bomb and surround it with shrapnel and put it in a suitcase or a gym bag. In a population of several 100 million, it's fairly simple to operate without detection. So people are on high alert and they begin to report anything. People can be detained or questioned on the slightest suspicion of a suspicion. Better safe than sorry. Yes, it's come to that again. And if the problem doesn't go away, then those most visible, in this case Arabs and Muslims, may have to be separated from the rest, put into internment camps, where the large majority, it will be readily admitted, are being detained for no reason at all, except the possibility that they could be potential terrorists. In a situation like that, under intense stress, it becomes completely rational to do some terrible things. In this country, America, during World War I, anyone of German descent was suspected of colluding with the enemy. People lost their jobs, were shunned, streets were renamed, all in the name of national defense. In the Second World War, Japanese American people were ordered to go to camps where they could live a miserable, imprisoned existence that would guarantee they could not harm the general population. A price, it was judged, that had to be paid. So we had safe and sorry. Freedom is a luxury. Security is a necessity. When security is threatened, the pretty plums of freedom begin to disappear. This is inevitable, and it's about to happen here and now. There will be protests, but if the attacks continue, soon the protesters will be charged and jailed, and the protests will become less frequent and less valuable. Consider France in the 1790s. They dispatched their king, established a republic, and said it was time for liberty, equality, and fraternity. Wow! It was like the entire nation was on spring break. It was going to be a party for everyone, and everyone was going to be free. But first, it was imperative that security be obtained, that is to say, imposed. The newly created state had to learn who was loyal and who was not, who had sympathies for the old regime or doubts about the revolution. People were encouraged to report on other people for any reason. People were arrested on the possibility that they might be disloyal. The prisons were filled and overfilled, and they solved that not by building more prisons, but by executing people, cutting off their heads. And once this began, it became a veritable bloodbath. People reported people because it made them appear to be loyal. The state set out to deliberately create a sense of terror in its people, hoping to paralyze them into, if not loyalty, at least total obedience. It was called the Reign of Terror. Terror was not a threat to the country, it was its ruler. Thousands of people died because the government was afraid, and fear makes people and governments panic and overreact. They have to, in order to try to control the fear. You fight fire with fire and fear with more fear. So Roosevelt may have been right when he said that we had nothing to fear but fear itself. If you are a part of the small terrorist faction, you can win if you can instill fear. If you can set off enough bombs in enough places and kill enough people so that the governments are forced to take action, such as been mentioned above, then you can win. Encouraged by this calculation, those known as the terrorists will be almost impossible to stop. They're not out for victory. All they want is terror and fear that calls for sacrifice, but it's doable.